DeFi will be trillions and trillions worth of size in the future. It's just a question of time how we get there.
How are you breaking these barriers and take it forward, especially between financial systems and social systems?
We had digital credit systems or credit scoring and digital finance for decades now, but we don't still have borderless credit scoring. Whenever you move to a new country, you start from completely scratch.
Stani Kulechov is an entrepreneur and a pioneer in blockchain innovation, decentralized finance, DeFi, and the future of digital economies. He is the founder of Aave Labs, a decentralized lending platform on Ethereum.
So we built a technology that is agnostic to traditional assets or these crypto assets. And that's effectively what DeFi is, and we believe it's going to be the backbone of all finance. DeFi is the best thing ever for financial inclusion because it creates a
Hello and welcome to Dinis Guarda YouTube podcast show, powered by citiesabc.com, businessabc.net, and wisdomia.ai. I have a pleasure to welcome to this show one of the biggest personalities in the financial and decentralized finance in the world, and an innovator that has been taking forward the way we see the bridge around taking financial systems and integrating with blockchain. So welcome to the series, Stani Kulechov, an entrepreneur and the pioneer in the blockchain innovation, decentralized finance, DeFi, and the future of digital economies. He's the founder of the famous protocol Aave Labs, a decentralized lending platform on Ethereum that uses smart contracts and liquidity pools that provide funds for borrowers. Aave is the largest DeFi protocol in TVL, total value locked, with over $38 billion, and also developed the family wallet, a mobile crypto wallet released in late 2024 to provide users with easier access to Web3 applications. Aave has grown into one of the largest DeFi platforms by total value locked. He offers flash loans, allowing loans without collaterals if repaid in one transaction. The platform has a native token called Aave for governance and staking. And Avara, the parent company of Aave Labs, has created the Aave protocol, as well as the Aave native stablecoin GHO and Lens Chain, the layer 2 high-performance network of social fi. In terms of the founder, Stani has been a leading personality in the blockchain and crypto world and DeFi. I started developing blockchain protocols while studying law at the University of Helsinki, earning a master's degree. And he created ETH Land in 2017, a peer-to-peer lending platform, and was one of the first widely used DeFi applications and raised 16.2 million in an initially ICO, and which later became Aave. Stani is an active investor and mentor in the DeFi space, and he supports projects like Dido, Maple, and Pull Together. Stani Kulechov, so you are a legend in the entrepreneur and the pioneer blockchain world, and a lot of your work has been actually bringing innovation, technology, blockchain, decentralized finance, and the future of digital economies. So if I would go back a couple of decades and then from Finland to the world, did you ever saw yourself doing what you're doing now? And what were probably some of the things that made who you are now?
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I've been always excited about computers and the internet, and end of the 90s we got a first computer with a internet connection that my dad bought to us. So that was kind of like a direct access to the internet and information. So like the first wave of internet was a lot about information and access to information. So you didn't have to learn anymore just from schools or from your parents or friends and like your surroundings, but you could actually access to any information around the world democratically, and you can interact with a lot of people at distance. So for me, kind of like in somewhat growing up online, helped me to also adopt some of these programming languages and become more kind of like a fluent on programming. I started with web pages. I started then moving into web applications, and then later into fintech, and now into more, well, now 7 years ago into the blockchain space. So technology has been always kind of like a part of what I've been always doing and growing up. So naturally, like I love tech and the democratization aspect of that. So in some ways, I always considered that I will do build some sort of interesting things on online. But yeah, I never knew that we build a decentralized financial protocol that starts as an experimentation and then ends up being as big as having 43 billion worth of assets deposited there, which is quite a big accomplishment, while still like decentralized finance or like DeFi is just a drop in the ocean of whole like a financial system and financial services. So I wouldn't expect to be here, no, but I'm definitely enjoying the ride.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's wonderful. Let's start with your father and the relationship. I always like to see the moments that make the catalyst for what you achieve. So you have a fantastic background, and I'm a huge fan of Finland, so I would like to touch Finland. So from studying law at the University of Helsinki, where you graduated with a master's degree in law, and during your studies, you work with several law firms, and then you, as still a student, you founded ETH Land, so which was one of the first peer-to-peer lending platforms on the Ethereum blockchain in 2017. I have to say this was the inception of everything. So from this first inception, before you found Aave, tell us a bit about that background from legal to create a decentralized lending, peer-to-peer lending platform, and then of course to the big waves of Aave.
Yeah, one of my kind of first startups was related to fintech. So back in 2015 and earlier, we had this kind of I would say like a crowdfunding peer-to-peer lending boom happening in fintech, and like overall like this whole idea of marketplace economies was growing. And I was interested from like the fintech aspect, so how we can create financial products, increase access to finance, fund more interesting opportunities, and we saw a lot of lending becoming digital, not just like traditional paper lending. And one of kind of ideas I had was to build a platform for financing businesses in terms of like invoice financing, factoring, but allow investors to actually invest and buy fractions of those investment opportunities with open market bidding. So at that time, I was purely kind of like approaching from a product technical perspective. I didn't have this was basically pre-university, and a lot of regulation came at that point into the space. It was a little bit hard to navigate because a lot of this regulation kind of like stalled innovation and created a lot of complexity around creating, fintech products and building these with a small team. So at that point, when I was finishing my product, a lot of the regulations stepped in into force, and it was really difficult with a small team actually and a small team, I'm referring to one person team, right? To actually build and compete with these more like a faster growing startups. And also I was from Finland, so capital is a little bit more scarce than rest of the Europe, and especially compared to the US. So at that time, my kind of plan was, still to go to university and study computer science. And more on the last minute, I decided that I want to actually study law and learn a lot about the rules and basically the rules of the economy and the commercial aspect and just grow those fields because I've been already building applications for a few years and that part was kind of like a really obvious to me. So I didn't want to go to study computer science and learn basics like, how do you set up a MySQL or Postgres database and how do you connect your database? Like I felt like that would be too much, waste of time at the moment. So I wanted to learn something new. During my end of my studies, I started to kind of put more energy into kind of the emerging technologies that were happening, and machine learning was really interesting that I was looking into, and blockchain was another one. And when I stumbled upon on Ethereum and I started to read more about it, I realized that this is actually interesting environment where you could basically create applications and they can exist forever and those rules can't be changed. And naturally, my thinking was that that's perfect for reducing middlemen and actually creating more accessible, transparent, and just more efficient financial applications. And that's where like ETHLend was born. It was short for Ethereum lending. The idea was that you simply lend and borrow on the blockchain by using cryptographic collateral. And that was time before stablecoins. So now a lot of the actually borrowing happens on Aave and in DeFi in stablecoins. And that was a time before stablecoins. So it was really like very early. And there was maybe like a few hundred applications on Ethereum. And today there's been deployed over millions of applications. So that was where things started. And when we launched in 2017, a lot of people were excited about what we built and used the product. And we continued building it and started to improve and grow. And that's how kind of like we evolved into Aave.
So Aave is a powerhouse worldwide. So it's probably the biggest DeFi platform in the world. And we have, talking about as we speak, we are in June 2025. We have a market cap of $33.44 billion and total available 20 billion. So Aave it's been doing as well fantastic work in putting together and defining what is decentralized finance, DeFi. So tell us a bit about the journey. So from peer-to-peer in the university to create one of the biggest financial organizations in the world, but still in a very kind of a down-to-earth approach, which I admire a lot about what you guys are doing, but a massive amount of technology. And I would like as well, I think that's still, if you could explain as well, my audience is quite broader, so I know that you and me are completely deep dive in crypto, but I would like to explain, I don't know if I'm a financial guy in a bank that can look at this, or as a student in India from a top university or whatever university that can understand how from that inception and what you've been trying, how it started and how it is right now.
Yeah, definitely. And when you think about what Aave is, firstly, like we call it Aave protocol, and the reason is that it's simply a set of an algorithm that works specific way to basically connect peers to do something specific together. And in Aave, that's basically supplying assets, cryptographic assets or digital assets or crypto, whatever you want to name it, into the protocol so you can earn. And then you can also borrow against what you supply. So you basically have credit against your portfolio, so you don't need to sell your portfolio. So 70% of the users, they simply supply assets into the protocol, and that can be stable coins. And then they earn interest that can be higher than other traditional venues. And then 30% also borrow the liquidity, and that's where the interest rate is generated. And stable coins are simply, they're like, for example, dollars that you might see in a bank account. But instead of being, let's say, dollars in this like a traditional form of digital, they're actually on the blockchain. And that's the kind of like idea there. So stablecoins are used to earn the interest and access Aave and decentralized finance in general. And decentralized finance, which Aave is part of, is simply a terminology that describes what these protocols are based on the properties that they have. And the properties are, for example, transparency. So a lot of the DeFi protocols are built on public blockchain networks, such as, for example, Ethereum, or so-called L2s that are built on top of Ethereum that have more scalability there. And then immutability or governance. So smart contracts allow you to create immutable functions, or let's say that if you code certain things, a program, it will stay forever that way. Or it can be governed by token governance, for example. So there are specific rules how the interest rate curve could change, or what asset could be used as a collateral, or what stable coins can be used to earn interest, for example. And then the smart contract allow also permissionless access, so anyone can access into that. So it's a fair democratic distribution of these financial primitives. And then there is a new concept of RWAs, which is basically looking into traditional assets, so-called real-world assets, how we name them in our space, and reflecting them in the blockchain. So, for example, you might have a traditional money market fund that is run by BlackRock, and they have that fund also on the blockchain. So you can, the same way as you can use your crypto assets as a collateral, you can use these traditional assets as a collateral by using the same technology. So we built a technology that is agnostic to traditional assets or these crypto assets. And that's effectively what DeFi is, and we believe it's going to be the backbone of all finance. So where we saw the financial system moving from clayboards, writing transactions on using clayboards as a ledger, to paper in tens of thousands of years ago. And then past decades, it moved to digital medium. And now it's moving to blockchain-based medium, which every transaction takes its time. It can be slow. But at the same time, every new medium creates a new types of properties as well. And, digital allows everyone to read information across the world instantly, access information instantly. And blockchain provides ability to secure information, add security, more access control, creates more programmability, more transparency. So that's how kind of like we see the finance evolving. And in the future, you could take credit from the Aave protocol against traditional assets, whether that's infrastructure, real estate, ETFs, equities, private credits, and so on, across globally. And for us, when you think about the kind of like how Aave got its first success, I think it was a lot to do with the COVID, and that a lot of people were back in their homes in lockdowns and actually testing and trying out DeFi and seeing high interest rates while the traditional interest rates were so down at the moment because central banks were trying to keep low interest rates to stimulate the economy. So that was like a really memorable growth point for Aave as well.
Yeah, so from an engineering perspective, blockchain and finance, what you guys achieve is a fantastic, I would say, massive final work, and still an ongoing work. So what you're bringing is like you mentioned in your description, there's a lot of layers of, first of all, blockchain smart contracts integrated with financial systems, data, and as well you have integrated, for instance, right now with the new umbrella rollout that is expanding your asset-specific implementation. So from a perspective of user journey, and I want to touch that because one of the key elements that I think is still passing, and I want to use some numbers from I was speaking recently in a summit, and there was a director of MasterCard that mentioned that the kind of decentralized finance and digital assets is going to reach around $11 trillion, so which is around, well, close to 11% of the world economy. If you look at that, it's as $100 trillion system. So your vision for Aave was always the innovation around bringing the best of blockchain and finance, combining with peer-to-peer distribution of empowering financial systems through a kind of a mathematical models. So from a UI UX perspective and community, I want to touch on that because community is key for any token, and your token is one of the most powerful in the planet. So what is the way that you've been building this community? And like you said, the community implies people managing the token, people managing the product, and being part of this ecosystem, which is bigger than most of the banks in the world right now as we speak.
Yeah, I think the community aspect is extremely important because the community can be, a lot of community members are actually users. That's how they become community members, or simply sees the power of the technology and its use cases and applications. So community is something where kind of I think not many people want to deal with or put energy into building. But so it sort of has to happen organically in the sense that if you're building a product that creates more access, more democratic access, and creates more opportunities, it's a place to actually gather a community together, especially if it's a very early technology. So I would say like Aave has grown significantly, but it's not still mainstream. So there's a lot of growth to do, and the journey is very long, so to speak. So people who are early adopters, they take that kind of like additional like a UX barrier or technical barrier to come and try until actually the usage of blockchain is much more easier. Securing keys is much more easier for the users. So that's why the community aspect is really important. But it acts also kind of like a voice for your product, and community members are willing to give more time to help to improve the product and the protocol. That's why I think it's such a estimated value that can help the project in overall.
So right now, let's look at the product. I'm a technologist at heart, and one of the like you said, the growth of DeFi and the growth of blockchain is going to be the mass adoption, and as well all this. In your case, you touch B2B and B2C because people can actually lend and get money and do a lot of different things. So from the platform and the product, I would like for you to elaborate how it works and a bit more like a broader perspective. I know that I'm not going too deep, but then I'll get deep afterwards. But I would like this part because I think one of the challenge, even me as a blockchain user, and I created a couple of tokens, so legal disclaimer, I've been always doing the mistakes, okay? And when I try to use the platform, there's a lot of knowledge you have to do because, of course, if you go to Revolut or one of these major apps to do some kind of finance, it's quite straightforward. When you're talking about a platform like Aave, it's still quite straightforward, but you need to go through a lot of layers. So I would like to see these parts. How do you see? Because I think that's the biggest challenge right now for DeFi to become much bigger. Because in the end of the day, for us, if you look at the world economy, and for instance, if you look at Africa, which is most of the average age group is 18 years old, and even Asia, which is quite young as well, there's the kind of in one end we have centralized finance and it's a centralized finance, but there's so much part. And one of the things you guys have as well is a reward system that is amazing. You have a lot of different parts on that. So on the product side, if you could elaborate a bit on the product and as well, anything you want to explain, the vision present, the vision future, and as well the roadmap.
Yeah, the present is kind of, we reached to a point where Aave is the biggest DeFi protocol. It's roughly the whole market share of DeFi lending. Aave has roughly 65 or so percent of that. The total value of all of the DeFi assets in Aave is over 20% of the value. And at the same time, so we kind of reached the DeFi maxima, and we're seeing more integrations happening as well, centralized exchanges and already integrated with Aave or thinking how to integrate. So there's a lot of that, but I think for us, what's really significant is to get Aave into the more kind of like mainstream audience and figure out how to create a really safe non-custodial access for the users, for the mainstream users to use Web3 and use Aave and then making it as easy as any of these fintech applications. I also think that a lot of fintech applications will integrate Aave as well. That's kind of like a natural step to do. That will make a lot of sense. And obviously the kind of staking program is really interesting because Aave has like a built-in insurance system that is called Umbrella. And the idea is that when you supply assets into the Aave protocol, you get in return A tokens. So these A tokens are just representations of your deposits into Aave, and then you can stake those A tokens for backstopping the risk of the protocol if there's a failed liquidation, for example, or something similar. So it's a way to earn additional interest on the Aave deposits, while kind of like backstopping the risk and providing safety for the users. So the same way as some of the blockchain networks have staking to secure the network, Aave staking is to secure of any kind of like shortfall events that might happen within the protocol.
Oh, fantastic. So part of what you just mentioned is you have GHO. There is a new kind of stable token that you created. So the GHO is supplying the collateral to Aave, and you earn interest rates in the collateral while you value GHO pegged with the US dollar. So this is a key thing in terms of the growth of stablecoins worldwide, and of course, bearing in mind your big audience and as well your big market, it's a big thing. So tell us a bit about this stablecoin and how you see the growth and as well the stability, how you put the GHO in the context of your token and in the context of the larger market of DeFi that is still growing.
Yeah, Go is an Aave native stablecoin that was launched by the Aave ecosystem a year and a half ago, roughly. And the benefit of Go is that, and how it actually was created, is that users really wanted more predictable rates in the Aave borrowing side, because now the rates are variable, so they're market based on supply and demand. Obviously, you can see the rates of past performance and make decisions based on that. But the key idea of the Go is to provide more predictable rates that are governed by the Aave DAO directly. So that's like a really big advantage for the users. And for the actual DAO, the reason why Go is interesting is that 100 million Go actually earns the same amount of revenue for the Aave DAO as 1 billion USDC will be minted. So that's because Go doesn't have LPs when it's minted directly into the Aave protocol. And that's the reason why it's so important for the Aave community, because they can get 10 times more revenue and then redistribute that revenue in another product called ASCO, which is a pure savings product with no slashing and no cooldown that you can enter and exit at any point. So yeah, that's kind of like the idea there. And Go is available on Ethereum mainnet, Arbitrum, Base, and now also expanding to Avalanche.
So you are as well right now been building the Aave Labs Horizont initiative. So this initiative aims to bridge the gap between DeFi, decentralized finance, and TradeFi, trading and finance. So tell us a bit, and as well, we've been enabling qualified institutions to use tokenized assets such as treasuries and collateral to borrow stable coins. So this is a massive industry part, which normally for people listening to us is like the equivalent of building a bank system, but in this case, decentralized, where multiple institutions can use the backend to build different products and different solutions. So this is a massive way to, first of all, to look at growth of DeFi, but creating a lot of collateral possibilities. So how do you see the Horizont Labs, the Aave Labs Horizont, I will spell it properly, the growth, and how are you going to take this to the broader financial ecosystem? And some case studies, I would like to, if you can touch some case studies. I think sometimes we talk about these things, I would like to touch the case studies.
Yeah. No, Horizon is an amazing example because most of the assets in DeFi, they're basic native crypto assets. So you have Ethereum, you have Bitcoin, that we see a lot of collateralization and other products, but the idea, and they're permissionless. The idea of Horizon Market is to actually use permission assets, which are more traditional securities, as a collateral and being able to borrow stable coins against them. So that is how the Horizon Market is set up. And the idea is there that we know that DeFi has reached its product market fit, but at the same time, we see a lot of these traditional assets coming onto the blockchain. Good examples was basically the BlackRock's Biddle Fund, which has grown already to over 3 billion. But these are permissioned assets. So we want to basically use the same Aave technology in an agnostic way and apply that to traditional assets. So Horizon starts with obviously the assets that already exist on chain, that are money market funds that are tokenized, T-bills that are tokenized. But down the line, we can go up the risk curve and introduce credit funds, credit tokenization, equities, ETFs, and so forth. So there's a lot that can be done there. And that is why it's such a good initiative, because it also introduces a really good use case for institutions who are issuing these assets, and also users that are buying these assets and want to borrow against. And typical example is that if you have treasury bills, you can use them as a collateral, but something like Aave works 24/7, and also in the weekend, you can borrow and return at any moment. It's very programmatic. So it's just like a better way of managing your portfolio directly on the blockchain in a safe way.
So from the case studies that I think you have, because of course this includes a huge amount of compliance, a huge amount of institutional organizations. I don't know, whatever you can share, but just I would like to see, for instance, like you have tokenized US treasuries that have surpassed $4 billion, and you touch some of these numbers, which is very impressive. So is there any specific verticals you are looking? Because of course, we're talking about, at the end of the day, like replacing a huge part of the financial system, or actually innovating the financial systems and bridging between conventional decentralized assets. So how do you see this crossover, especially in the case studies? And I think some of the things you want to bring for our audience to understand a bit more on that. And I'm interested as well myself to learn how you guys are building the engineering and the ecosystem around that.
Yeah, I think the traditional assets are going to be mainly in the beginning treasury funds and money markets, but I would see also ETFs being tokenized and provides better also flexibility for users. But also private equity and infrastructure is a really good example. So, it's not like there's great companies that are building the future. You have Stripe, you have SpaceX, Neuralink, OpenAI, and very little people have access to these companies to invest. But tokenization could actually allow a better access create more liquidity for these types of products. So that is something really interesting. So anywhere where you create additional access for the users that they can access financial opportunities that weren't available for them before, that's a big thing. That is why I think stablecoins are taking off in places like, for example, Argentina, across Africa, and Middle East, Asia, and actually in India as well. Because it provides very direct way to access the dollar, and DeFi provides the access to the dollar yield as well. And RWA is a way to create and scale the space and create more borrowing demand, because there's new types of collaterals that are coming on chain from the traditional world. So that is what I see kind of like very interesting, and where things are going to head towards with RWAs and the Horizont market.
So one of the biggest challenges that we look when we look at DeFi is the scalability and the regulation. So you've been doing a massive work, and as well you're a lawyer, so you have all the background of this area. So I know that at the moment we have the US right now being much more open to DeFi, well, at least to blockchain and crypto, but there's still a lot of work around how the governments around the world get their things together. I think part of that is about lack of education, and there's a lot of contradictions as well around the system. So from your experience building Aave, and as well we're talking about, the biggest DeFi platform in the world, but as well we're talking about a substantial amount of financial transactions. What have been your work towards working the regulator and putting a platform that kind of tick the boxes, and as well that makes people comfortable around security and around how to approach the technology and as well the execution?
Yeah, I'm always a believer that you should never basically regulate technology. You can regulate services around the technology if there is a really specific need. So regulation for the sake of regulation never works, and it typically creates friction and limits the innovation. But I do think where regulation is helpful is for those companies that are providing financial services and want to use the technology. In most cases, they're already regulated. So the asset issuers that are issuing tokenized funds, for example, they're already regulated as asset managers and so forth. So a lot of that regulation already exists. But also smart contracts can remove a lot of these risks, because you remove the central point of failures and the middlemen, and you can codify the smart contracts in a way that you mitigate a lot of the risk that traditional finance actually has. So it's a completely new approach to financial services or the financial ecosystem, because a lot of the issues that the old regulation was written for was to avoid some of these challenges, for example, issues with custodians, mismanagement of funds, not enough transparency, and blockchain actually provides a lot of solutions, because you don't have the element of custody. You can self-custody the funds. You can also have the full transparency, so you can account every single transaction and the whole systemic state every single second, not just in quarterly reports or annual reports. And everything is traceable, which is something that people don't know, but once you start transacting on chain, every single transaction can be traced. So obviously that creates challenges from the privacy perspective, which is something that a lot of people are now working on to solve the blockchain privacy. But you have that open standard for open markets, which is really important. And the permissionless access ensures that everyone has access and are treated fairly when they transact. So the technology itself solves a lot of these legacy problems. And then if you're building a financial service business by using this new technology, you probably already are somewhat regulated somehow.
And that's the most important thing. We take this forward. So you've been, part of your work has been making a bridge between building these decentralized financial systems, but as well social systems. So at the moment, one of the fast growing ecosystems is all the areas of financial systems related with social gaming systems and gamification integrated, especially with AI systems, but as well with the reward systems. So from this work that you've been doing between the centralized financial and social systems, I think that's at least there's one on my view, there's a big division between how, for instance, there's 4.5 people playing games every day, but at the same time, when you look at most of our core financial systems, they are still very poor to support entrepreneurs, to support financial inclusion. And then there's another part that is the kind of financial literacy. So from your work on building this decentralized financial systems, which is a fantastic work of engineering technology and as well financial benchmarks and the social systems, I think that's the division that is there. How do you see this division being taken out and bringing this special to impact financial inclusion, financial literacy, and as well, and this is, I'm talking even for, I give you the example myself. So as an entrepreneur, I've been doing all the mistakes, and I actually created the bank or helped create the bank in the past, and I work in investment banking. So there's a lot of layers, and you get lost in the layers. And especially the systems don't speak still with each other because we have too much barriers. So I would like just to see, and part of your success, how are you breaking these barriers and take it forward, especially between financial systems and social systems?
No, there's definitely a connection. I mean, there's a lot of financial capital in the world, but every single person has social capital, regardless of their financial position. And as people grow up, they modify this social capital that they have, and that might be the connections we make offline or online, the audiences we create. For example, like this podcast. You have a connectivity with your audience. That's your social capital. And also, I think the identity aspect as well, that you should be able to own your identity and your audience, and it shouldn't be a number in a database somewhere, which can actually stop existing at any point, and you'd lose your followers and your identity and everything you created, for example. So And discovery is really important. So discovering like what are the best financial opportunities and what can be trusted, the networks of trust. And that can be done with social proof. So if everyone else is trusting something, there might be a strong signal that might be something useful, for example. So that is why it's so important, not only by itself of like decentralizing the kind of like a social applications and networks we're using day to day, every day, but also how they can help financial use cases. And I do think DeFi is the best thing ever for financial inclusion because it creates a borderless an environment for capital formation and capital distribution. And the social aspect there is great because it also establishes reputation of different participants across the world. We still don't have. We had digital let's say like credit systems or credit scoring and digital finance for decades now, but we don't still have borderless credit scoring. Whenever you move to a new country, you start from completely scratch. So it just showcases the pain points we have now.
Yeah, and this is one of my obsessions, is that we can actually bring this to different people. Because, for instance, I've been working in different continents, and the divide is quite, I would say that is very, very confusing for different people. And as well, this creates as well a fragmentation of the systems that then doesn't empower enough organizations to scale. And as well, a lot of this fragmentation then just creates a lot of lack of transparency and a lot of issues. But coming back to, you touched AI in the beginning, and you are one of the most advanced companies on this area. So how do you see all the different things? Because at the moment we have blockchain becoming more mature, but it's still not. I would say that if you look at AI managed to get much more tools that became much better UI UX for a global audience, and ultimately we're talking about already $1 trillion of business, whereas blockchain is still in an hybrid between mainstream, not mainstream, and a lot of different fragmented parts. So as one of the leaders in the industry, how do you see right now the bridge between AI and blockchain and special decentralized finance?
Yeah, I think what's important is to kind of like establish a strong understanding what DeFi is and why it's secure, and then over time it creates more of that trust and appeal. And DeFi will be the place where we will have the best financial opportunities, and those will be available to everyone. So it will provide the best competitive offers, and I think that's how it grows. And RWAs will bring more value into DeFi, and stablecoins allow to access DeFi, consume the capital, consume the yield opportunities. And I think it's a lot to do with the experience, making as seamless as possible for mainstream users. And education plays a really big part of it. Why, we have to focus on education. So that part is something where a lot of focus has to go, but we shouldn't expect users to, creating a wallet, writing like seed words and kind of like not knowing what to do. Like we have to make it super easy for the users.
Yeah, that part is for me the key element, and the usability, UI UX applied with a simple product. And this brings me to my last question. So, as someone that has experience and build DeFi and all the concepts, so there's still a lot of barriers to make it bigger, but you will achieve already a state that is, I would say, mainstream in a lot of ways, but as well still growing in a lot of capacities. So from the current state of innovation, and you guys are doing a lot of things, we touched some of them like Go and so forth. What do you see the role of DeFi in making the bridge between the centralized and the decentralized systems, especially between the general financial institutions and the governments, and as well I would say the parallel fast growing I would say the tech ecosystem that is becoming a parallel system to the world ecosystem systems. I don't know if you understand the question, but it's a quite complex one.
No, I think DeFi will be the backbone of all finance, and we'll touch upon different kinds of opportunities. So today, a lot of DeFi is crypto assets, but I think in a couple of years, stablecoins are outgrow the crypto native assets like Ethereum and Bitcoin in terms of their capitalization, and then real world assets will overgrow this segment, both of them. So also we will see things like infrastructure being tokenized and then used as a collateral in Aave to extend credit and finance more of those types of opportunities, especially green energy. So I'm a big believer in that. So at some point from 5 to 10 years from now, DeFi will affect every single person's life in the planet.
Oh, I'm all for that. So one of the things I want to touch, so just as one note, I want your view on this. So at the moment, so in a lot of the systems of DeFi, the challenge as well has been detecting anomalies and flagging suspicious activities, and as well helping the user journey. So there's a lot of right now introduction of AI agents that can reshape DeFi infrastructure and as well support the user journey in terms of how we bring that. So are you working on that level, especially bringing some of this for risk management and security protocols? And I know that you are very focused on governance enhancement.
Yeah, no, I think I would say like a tracing transactions, bad actors is very easy at this point because every single transaction on chain is traceable. There's this common like misconception that, a lot of Bitcoin is money laundering, but it's actually like not even 1%, and it's like a fraction of it's like 0.15% or something like that is illicit activity. So that's like old news, and we have Bitcoin ETFs, we have biggest fund managers buying Bitcoin and Ethereum, and and so forth. So that part is like really not an kind of like issue anymore. I think a lot to do with the UX and securing the wallet is the challenge, and also social engineering is as well. So I think social engineering is something that is challenging for not just for let's say DeFi, but also the traditional financial sector. You can create the most secure system in the planet, but if you get into someone's mind and you're able to do something harmful, that's the hardest part to navigate. And for AI engines, I think blockchain is the best substrate for AI, especially for financial transactions and also for identity social transactions, for decentralized social media, for example, because with AI, blockchain provides basically financial rails, whether it's like capital allocation or risk management or some other type of data assessment. So I'm a very big believer of AI agents in DeFi and across different blockchain use cases.
Fantastic, and I think it will help a lot of innovation, making it big, especially if you put the AIs becoming as well a concierge for a lot of the user journey that sometimes the web limits. So you are one of the most active investors and mentor in the DeFi space and financial blockchain. Can you share some insights how you evaluate projects, but as well, and support the teams, but as well some cases that you think are coming from your ecosystem or other ecosystems that we should be looking, and as well part of the Aave fast-growing ecosystem?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that Aave is building the Aave v4, which allows to create own types of borrow configurations and innovation. So seeing teams actually working on using Aave as a source of liquidity and borrowing different kinds of use cases, that's really interesting. We've seen under collateralized loans, credit systems being built. Those are really interesting. And also like better ways to interact with decentralized finance, better risk management. So these things are super interesting for me as a kind of like person who is involved in DeFi, also as an investor looking into these different types of products as well.
And is there any kind of startup that you want to highlight, or any kind of project that is complementing your ecosystem?
Well, specifically speaking, I think one thing about the ecosystem is that a lot of these things that are built on Aave, they pop up anywhere because it's very permissionless environment. So not specifically one particular one, but I like that I like the ideas where you're not just kind of like building yield aggregators into Aave, but also ways to figure out how to use the borrow side of Aave, because there's a lot of liquidity there. So those kind of use cases are super interesting. And also RWA projects that are using Aave. That's what I'm also interested in.
So I know that you have to go. So I have one question that is about your long-term vision for the future of decentralized finance. So I agree with you that this is going to become much bigger, and even it's ironic that even MasterCard projections is $11 trillion. So I believe that all the economy is going to come to these systems, but it's a journey for that. So how do you see this short and long-term vision? Because in the end of the day, the long-term starts with the now, and how we put it together. And you've been doing that, but I would like to see how you accelerating that.
Yeah, I think short-term RWAs is one aspect where we're going to see a lot of growth, just more traditional assets coming onto the blockchain. And long term, we will see assets that kind of like couldn't be funded necessarily because some other issues in traditional finance being able to be tokenized, used as a collateral in Aave. That's really interesting on long-term horizon. So I do think that DeFi will be trillions and trillions worth of size in the future. And it's just a question of time how we get there.
Okay. So last thing, I think we've been synthetic, so give me one last question. So education, you touch education. So for people listening to us, and I have a mix of professionals and tech people, but as well a lot of young people, and especially a lot of people in universities. So for people that are trying to engage and get into the Aave ecosystem, and as well eventually to get into your fantastic as well possibilities of growing and a career, but as well learning, like you said, in terms of trading, investment, and different parts, what would be the advice you give to them, both on using the platform, but as well on learning how to make a living out of it?
I think reading a lot of the documentation is the best way to go about it. So in Aave, we have really comprehensive documentation at docs.aave.com. That's a really good starting point. I also recommend to read the Ethereum yellow paper. That gives a good perspective as well. And just kind of like having good curiosity and just learning a lot. There's a lot of information to digest, but the space needs new energy and new innovators. So it's definitely welcoming.
Okay, thank you so much. So I know that you have to go, so it's an honor to have you here. There's a lot of more questions, but I probably will push it forward in some follow up. But we're going to be putting all the notes around your community, your fantastic parts. There's a lot of things in terms of for people listening to us, the benefits of the powered system of Aave. There's a lot of staking opportunities. There's a lot of education as well, resources that you guys provide. But a lot of these things is about how you take it forward and how we, like you said, read the documents and move forward with integrating this. And I also would like to, for people listening to us and while we're here, one of the things I've been finding myself as a teacher in business schools, and I taught in Copenhagen and in India, I've been doing like guest lectures. A lot of the students, if you have STEM students, they understand, some of them. If you have humanistic students, they don't understand. So I'm trying to make sure that this brings to a lot of the audience, but especially in what you guys are doing, I would suggest that Aave is one of the most fascinating financial ecosystems in the planet that I think needs to be much more highlighted. So thank you so much and congratulations to this amazing work and pushing this global community and this innovation.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me here, and hope to be back soon again.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.